evening, and welcome to another show of Let's Talk Business. As usual, thank you so much to Johan. And of course, you can always watch us at KGNG 26.8. You can also listen to us at PHLB Radio app, Spotify. Watch us again on YouTube and on Facebook as well. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. We are so glad for you to be joining us tonight. We have a wonderful guest that's going to be joining us in a bit. But first, let's start talking about small businesses. We've already established in the show that small business is truly the backbone of our community. Over 90% of businesses in Nevada are considered small businesses. We even have one whole county, which every employee, every person in that county is employed by a small business, which is truly amazing. Now, that said, there are a lot of challenges that small businesses face. For example, I think the number one challenge that a lot of small business owners are talking about right now, of course, is price increases, the inflation. And it's really tough because, of course, then you have to decide, am I going to increase my prices? How is that going to affect my business or my patronage, right? But at some point, they have to do it because, for example, if you're a restaurant, the prices of food keep on rising as well. So they're going to have, and then they have to be competitive when it comes to wages also. So then you have to make that decision and how much, what's the right amount, where's the balance so that I won't alienate or lose my clients. Supply chain, although it's gotten better since COVID, it's still shaky, right? And during COVID, we saw how much increased prices are for shipping, and it really affected a lot of different businesses. And then there's another decision to be made on that one. Do I overstock if you're a retail company? Well, what if you don't sell that? It really affects your cash flow as well. So supply chain is still an issue also. Increasing customer expectations. Really, it's more about competition. And I think there's none bigger than the convenience of shopping online when it comes to, let's say, you're a retail store. And I just mentioned this because I just heard on the news, Bed Bath & Beyond might be going out of business. So another big brick and mortar that's going to be closing. So increasing customer expectations as far as availability or convenience of shopping, expectations and customer service, and so a lot of different things when it comes to customer expectations. You have data, right? And depending on what kind of industry you are, being able to have data that's available for you right away is really important. So of course, if you're a small business and you're competing with a big brand, they've got more resources to be able to have the latest and greatest toys. Even in the banking industry, for example, where I came from, the big national brands have the best and brightest and newest toys that does mobile deposits and all these really cool things that a smaller community bank might not be able to do. So how do you compensate for that, right? The next one would be hiring people. There's still shortages everywhere. And there's a lot of different issues. The first one would be there are some industries that we're just really short of. Healthcare is one of them. We don't have enough nurses. Hell, we don't even have enough educators. So there's a national shortage in educators as well. So what more when it comes to the workforce also? So now you've got a smaller pool of people that everybody's vying for. So what do? Do you overcompensate? The benefits is another part of that. Being able to offer benefits is expensive sometimes for a small business. So if you're going up against a bigger brand again that can offer benefits, how do you compensate for that, right? And then, of course, there's the always looming data security breaches that can really affect small businesses, especially healthcare businesses, where they try to ransom your data, and it's really hard to be able to operate without them. And the cost of being able to be very safe and sophisticated with your firewall can go up. So that's another challenge that small businesses are facing. And then one last that I wanted to mention, and believe me, there's a lot more: sustainability. Sustainability is always hard, especially if you're in an industry like the restaurant business. Yeah, we all know that it's very tough to have sustainability in a restaurant business. It's amazing here in Las Vegas how many restaurants that we have that's over 20 years old and they're still doing very well. And I think that's really more of the exception and not the norm. So, sustainability. Now, this is AAPI show, so of course we want to talk a little bit about the minority small business. And there are different set of challenges among those that affect the minority businesses as well. I think one of them is probably access to capital, depending on which minority you talk to, right? But it's a big issue because, of course, when you're starting out, let's say you just migrated here, you don't have a lot of credit history, you don't have a lot of capital saved up yet, and it's very hard to be able to get lending without those two. There's a cultural issue sometimes in lending and not understanding the culture of the people. I've seen this. We had a gentleman, for example, that was applying for a loan. The underwriters couldn't understand that at early 20s, he was still living with his parents. He had excellent credit, but not a lot of credit history. But that's common for AAPI families where they live with their parents until they marry, and they just couldn't wrap around that particular scenario, and they declined them for a loan. So there's a lot of different challenges in getting access to capital in the minority community. And another big one, which is tied to, which I think is the bigger one, is translation. Translation is a very big challenge for minority business owners when it comes to different resources that's available for them. Because I don't mean translation when you say just translating a piece of paper from English to Spanish or from English to Tagalog or Chinese, for example. It's really translating the whole process and really the business owner understanding what that looks like. I cannot find a better example except for the PPP loans when during the pandemic, when that was happening. A lot of minority business owners did not apply for the PPP loans because they did not understand what it is. They did not understand if it's a loan, if it's something that's going to be forgiven, what do they need to submit and why. So there were a lot of issues that they didn't even understand sometimes if they qualified or not. So not until we did some webinars in their language with somebody that they trusted that they started applying for PPP loans. So they missed out. So that's another huge thing, really, is the translation. I think the biggest issue is not knowing what resources are available for them. And I'll tie that back again to translation because, of course, they don't know what they don't know. So there's not enough outreach to the different minority communities about what's available for small businesses. There's a lot of different resources that's out there for them. So one of the things that we talked about would be scaling your business, learning how to market it in the minority community side. Well, you don't always have to pay for that. There's a lot of different classes that's offered by SBDC, for example. SCORE can definitely help you with building your business plan. They just don't know about these things, right? And then some of them, their programs, if it's a webinar, it's something that needs to be translated in their language as well. So knowing where to go, who to go to, can really be a big benefit for them. Knowing that there's a place to be able to go to. I know we do have chambers of commerces, but I'll give you the Asian Chamber as an example. There are 22,000 Asian-owned businesses. The membership of the Asian Chamber is about 750. So there's still a big bulk that's not part of the chamber. How do you get to those other, the remaining small businesses, the information that there are resources that's available for them? that they can call on and help them with their business. So there you go. So just to wrap up, there's different challenges. There's definitely a lot of challenges for small businesses, but for minority-owned businesses, there's a separate challenge as well. And what we're going to do is when we get back, we're going to talk to a lady, a good friend of mine, who actually has a great program that helps minority businesses as well. So that when we get back, we're gonna talk to her. We're gonna bring her in. So we're gonna take a quick break.
Just like a friend from back home. This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio.
Welcome back. All right, I'm really excited tonight. I have a very good friend who's coming in to join us in the show. Let's bring her in. Hello, Gabrielle, and thank you so much. Haley as well, is Gabrielle's co-worker at Lexicon Bank. Why don't we start by both of you telling us about yourself? Please tell us about yourself and about Lexicon Bank as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sonny, and thank you so much to KG for providing us the opportunity and to discuss Lexicon, as you mentioned, the program that we have with women and minority business entrepreneurs. So a little bit about myself. I've been in banking for over 20 years now. I started when I was, I think, like 12. But I've always had a focus on the minority community. And I think for me, it's really just a calling. I get to where I'm at without the help of others. And it was always compelling for me to help businesses or just regular, consumers understand the banking and process. And so there's a couple things that you touched upon that I'll touch upon in a bit, but a big thing is culture, language, and technology, and kind of like the disparities and understanding to make sure they know how to utilize these functions and just really. And so aside from banking, I'm also a commissioner on the Commission of Minority Affairs. And so what I do is it runs in parallels, again, just really strictly looking to see how I can make things better for our minority community. I'm Latina, but as you know, the AAPI and Latino community and others as well, we're very family oriented. And so I feel there's definitely cross-cultural thing that we can help each other out with. And so a little bit, yes, I'm excited to hear. And then I'll pass it over to Haley.
Go ahead, Haley.
Good morning. My name is Haley Williams. I started working at Lexicon Bank 2 weeks ago. I chose the bank because they're very inclusive. It's a woman in leadership, and it's just all about us coming together as a culture. I'm a Black woman. I'm from LA. I'm a veteran. I joined the military when I was 17, worked in IT, cybersecurity my whole life. And I just think it's important that those opportunities be given to people of color and just ensuring that the bank has all the tools it needs and that we're educating our family on cybersecurity and threats and knowing that everything is connected to IT and how important it is for all of us to know what's going on, especially with all the new advances in IT. I'm all for making things as fair as they can be and just educating our people on technology, security, and just everything IT. So thank you for having me.
You are very welcome, and welcome again, both of you. Haley, by the way, congratulations on
Thank you.
And come and welcome to Nevada. If you just moved here, you said
yeah, I love it. I love it. Thank you for having me.
That's fantastic. All right, Gabrielle. One of the things I spoke about are challenges of minority business owners, such as translation or knowing what resources are available for them when it comes to business. You have an awesome program that you have stated, Women and Minority Business Owners. What is the program called? How does it work?
So it's still in early phase of launch. I myself am the business community engagement officer, and so the program itself is just really focused on women and minority businesses. And again, it's really just helping them helping us provide them with the knowledge and awareness of what one things that you mentioned was access to capital. Another mention was data security, sustainability, scalability. So typically, it's not that businesses don't know they know how to work within their business, but sometimes they don't know how to do business management and how to scale and where to go. And a lot of that, again, is just because of the lack of knowledge and awareness of where to go, who to speak to, who's a big thing is a trusted source, because there's a lot of people out there that have consultative services, but will charge people when again, they can go elsewhere to be able to provide, to receive that information for free. And there's something that you hit upon that I think is key, is there's all these free resources and the state is receiving even more money to expand on these resources. And there's all these businesses, but there's a disconnect. There's a huge gap. How do we bridge that and meeting the businesses at their level? Like you mentioned, the Asian Chamber has about 700 some odd members, but the community itself and their entrepreneurs, 22,000. That's a huge, gap.
Yeah.
So, and typically businesses, they're just like you and they're working 9 to 5, 9 to 7, depending on the type of industry that they're in, and making sure that we can meet them at where they're at and bringing those resources and understanding at their level.
You mentioned something that I forgot to mention earlier when I was talking about the challenges, really, and I'm so glad that you mentioned it. Sometimes our small business owners are victimized by people in their own community about, oh, let's hire me, I'm a consultant. And it turns out they're not that great of a consultant, or they don't know what they're doing themselves.
Yeah.
And when they could have at least gotten the information in a business resource fair, for example, or talking to business and industry, that at least they had a guide and they could really see that what they're doing is correct, right?
Right. And you also mentioned something about PPP. Just like you, I remember during the pandemic working countless hours and having to translate. I mean, and obviously I'm bilingual, but just even reading the English component of the PPP application, I was like, what does this even mean? Like, if it's confusing for me, I can't imagine how much more confusing it is for someone else where English is their second language and they're barely understanding, like they can barely speak it, let alone not even read it. And so it was really compelling for me. I remember the most impactful one was I had a business owner, same thing, owned a restaurant. It took us 3 hours to get through the application process.
Wow.
I had to FaceTime her, translate the application for $2,700. But that's how important that was for her to get that money. And, and it's really just about, making sure that, like I said, as I mentioned, is meeting them where they're at and having them understand the resources that are out there and making sure that they know that there's translation services to help them expand their business or even start. It's Lexicon. We're just like, I didn't get to talk a lot about Lexicon, but we're out of our de novo stage, which means we're a little over 3 years old. The whole premise of our bank is community oriented. Our board members are all entrepreneurs themselves. They all own different businesses, so they understand the economic dynamics that we face here. So when someone comes and applies for a loan or opens up an account and they need some kind of assistance, they're going to get that special, handheld service. And as Haley mentioned, our CEO, she's very much, if there's one thing that will upset her, is if you give somebody bad service. That is the only thing that'll set her off. So she hires especially for culture. If you don't want to give that person that level of service, you're just not going to work with us. And that's okay, But again, we're really there to have that reciprocal benefit. We want your business. We want to make sure that we can, support your business in return.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. And full disclosure, I know their CEO as well, Stacy. I've worked with her in the past. So. All right.
Good.
I gotta ask you, what inspired you to start this program, though, as far as for minority business, women-owned businesses?
I would say really just the need. I'm sure you know the data. It's the fastest growing segment, Latinos, African American, Asian American. I mean, it's a booming. It doesn't matter which way you look at it. So people, in order to make sure that our ecosystem is successful, we want to make sure that we're setting them up with the right tools, with the right information to be able to grow, sustain, and scale and continue to scale. And so I think it's kind of just always drawn to me to make and provide solutions for our business community. And obviously I have a special heart for the minority community and also for women as well. And it's just, again, just closing that disparity gap and making sure that they have the proper resources and tools to make them successful. And I'll give you a quick little, you mentioned access to capital.
Yeah.
So I did have a client that was referred to me, had gone to several different banks, kept getting declined. And this is a professional. This is a physician who had been, was working at a patient for about 12 years, decided to branch out. Every other bank kept looking at it as a startup. Technically, it is a startup. However, because it's a doctor, if God forbid her business were to fail, she can still go back to being a physician. They have the contract. They were able to explain it to me. I was able to explain it to my credit team. So really just having and being that advocate for my business client and making sure that I can explain it. And again, same thing, that cultural component really brought things to light because I was able to explain on their behalf, this is why this happened. This is why that happened. And they're just like, okay, because at the end of the day, it's about I'm providing an impact, not just for them, but now they're going to create jobs. Now we have a new entrepreneur who's going to be able to grow and scale and help out the community.
No, that's fantastic. I love it. I know that's a great example already. I was going to ask you to give me an example of how that program works. You already gave me one. That's fantastic. But I mentioned some challenges for minority. Tell me, how about from your point of view, what other challenges do you see for minority business owners besides the ones that I said? Is there something that I missed that's pretty big as well, or something that's more important? It's really important to you?
I would say. One of the big misconceptions is the difference between CPA and a bookkeeper.
Okay.
To put things in perspective, I had a client years ago who was doing about their gross sales were at about 9 million. He loved his bookkeeper because he never paid taxes. But then when he wanted to go get a loan, I said, well, no bank is going to lend to you when you have negative, revenue of 150,000. He's like, well, I made 9 million. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's your gross. However, look at everything that you're writing off. Do you want to be lendable or do you not want to pay taxes? I mean, nobody wants to pay taxes, but there's a give and take.
Yeah.
I completely understand, but you have to show from a bank that you can pay this loan, and if you're showing that you have a negative net of revenue, nobody's gonna lend you money. The math wasn't mathing,
Yeah, of course.
So I feel like I feel that that's very prevalent in the minority community. I see that a lot, and so I was able to help him get a CPA who was bilingual, who had the same cultural understanding. So that way you don't feel judged. I completely understand why it was that they were doing it. However, nobody came in to teach them and make them understand, like, look, I get why you don't want to do this. However, if you ever want to grow your business, if you ever want to sell it, if you ever want to buy, like somebody wanted to buy the land so he can add his restaurant. And so I said, nobody's going to lend you money because it's not showing that you have money. And so within about 2 years, we were able to turn that around and help him get funded for his first brick and mortar restaurant.
That's fantastic. I love that story. There you go. Because it's true. Sometimes you get bad advice, from somebody.
Right. And so the CP or the bookkeeper that he had kept telling him that, oh no, everything was fine, and and she was not expensive, and obviously when he went to a CPA, yeah, it was the difference. But what I told him, look, it's not a cost. She's an investment. She's going to help your business grow and stay out of trouble. Sure enough, like she went through his bookkeeping, it was a nightmare, but nonetheless, she got him on the right track.
All right, that's fantastic. Now, you talked about having other services, wraparound services that you can help with as well. Can you give us some examples of what these are?
Yes, of course. We've actually mentioned a couple of them. So there's certain things that we can do at Lexicon. Our philosophy is we want to make sure we give you that yes. For whatever reason, if it can't be a yes with us, we have strategic partners in the community that can help along with that. So let's say I had a couple clients where they didn't cash flow to our guidelines. I partner with a CFI, and a CDFI is a community development financial institution, and they were able to help them get that capital that we weren't able to. They still bank with us. They have we have the technology and the services that we were able to provide. Again, we partner with that CDFI to make sure that they have that capital. So that's one instance. Depending on the length and the term of the business, if they're looking to diversify their revenue stream, some consultants say, have you thought of getting your certification if you're a woman-owned business enterprise or minority business-owned enterprise? There's a variety of different certifications, and once you're at a certain threshold, that's when I start to refer them out, make sure they can be exposed to other opportunities as well. So and also that just like in the cow in the quick, don't mind types is when the services to help you build out your business plan. If you're looking to look for different revenue opportunities, I'll refer them to them. Me personally, because we don't have the capacity, we don't do a lot of start businesses. Where we come in is typically that marker where we can help business grow.
Fantastic. I'm glad that you even mentioned certification, because David's been on the show and we talked about how important that is.
Yes. I love David. Yes, I see him everywhere. Yeah. So anytime I get a business where I feel that would be a good connection, Center Council, or we're to WRMSDC, which is the Western Regional Minority Supplier Development Council. So there's different buckets, and it's really just what I like to do is really just kind of sit down and listen to the customer, hear their story, and then once they start to say certain things, I'll take notes, and then that's when I can say, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? And kind of go from there and give them those options and opportunities.
Okay, so we're approaching the end of our show. It's just only a 30-minute show. It's been fantastic. Let's give the final word. Please tell me where Lexicon Bank is, everybody, how they can contact you. Go for it.
Sure. So Lexicon Bank is in Tivoli Village, but my office is really my car. I go wherever I'm needed. I can be reached at GYET, which is GWYETT at lexiconbank.com, and my phone number is 702-567-6098, and text usually works best.
Perfect. They have a great looking branch, by the way, just to let the audience know. It's on Tivoli. It's fantastic. And they're right next to some great restaurants. So, Gabrielle, Haley, thank you so much for joining the show. We truly appreciate it. More power to you, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Have a
Okay,
good day.
take care. That is our show for tonight. See you next Monday. Take care.